Caught in a whirlwind situationship with a guy who said, "I'm starting to like you too much. I feel tangled in emotional chaos." After an intense encounter, I questioned if he's an abuser or just misunderstood. Now I'm spiraling and searching for clarity. Can I break free? Okay, this is lengthy, but I need to elaborate because I feel like I am losing my mind trying to comprehend this dynamic. If you care to read and share some advice, I would greatly appreciate it. I am a 23-year-old female who met a 30-year-old male about 3 months ago on a dating application. He has been my first experience with online dating. We connected quickly and I requested to keep things casual. He agreed. He is intelligent, successful, emotionally stable, and sexually dominant. Our first date was enjoyable, but our second date is when things took a turn. We were intoxicated and went to his place afterward where we ended up having sexual intercourse. I did not want to engage in that, but I also did not stop him. I was overwhelmed and simply froze. A few days later, I called him to discuss boundaries and informed him that I did not remember much of that night. He stated that from his point of view, I definitely wanted it. We never fully processed it, we just continued. Later, we had a conversation where he admitted he was starting to develop stronger feelings for me and wanted to know where my mind was. I was not necessarily in the same place as he was, but I was open and I liked him. I communicated that. We continued to see each other casually, but because of his earlier comment, I thought we should meet on Valentine's Day. Despite only having been together for 3 weeks, I did not believe we would exchange gifts, but he surprised me with a gift. It was nice and somewhat expensive, and I paid for the dinner that was delivered to his hotel room. However, 2 weeks later, I discovered he was still active on the dating application. I confronted him not in an accusatory manner as we had not decided to become exclusive. I simply said that if he was still on the app and swiping, I would prefer to take a step back. He became somewhat defensive and I spiraled internally. I did not understand how he could be defensive if this was a casual arrangement. I was not angry, I did not demand an explanation. I just recognized the situation and wanted to take a step back. If he ever wanted to be exclusive or serious, it was not as if I had removed that option from consideration. I was unable to gauge his feelings over text, so we had a lengthy telephone conversation where I basically offered to walk away, be friends with benefits, or pursue exclusivity. He suggested that we just think about it. Afterward, I sent him a lengthy message detailing everything I had been holding back: clarity, vulnerability, and emotional honesty. I essentially expressed that I do like him and that if he is seeking something serious, we can honor that, but I need to be clear that at present it is still casual. I had been proceeding as if it were casual, yet he was increasing the intensity by becoming defensive, stating he liked me too much, and I wanted to respect that. I felt there was no need to ramp up the intensity and honor that intensity if it was not leading anywhere. His response was polite. He thanked me for my clarity while not sharing much of his own. Ultimately, he agreed to start as friends with benefits but to see where things would go, which I interpreted as indicating that this arrangement was casual and not progressing. I ignored his increased intensity. When we met next, we had another sexual encounter that was aggressive. He choked me harder than he ever had before. I became concerned and addressed it afterward, which led to a long, serious conversation where I directly asked him if he derived pleasure from hurting women. I enjoy rough sex too, but I do not wish to be with an abuser. He assured me he had never hurt a woman and did not wish to do so. That conversation led him to open up about his sexual preferences and safety. It was deep, yet somehow still ambiguous, and did not lead to any real internal closure. The next time I saw him, I stayed over for a few days. The following sexual encounter involved him preparing to choke me, but then he stopped. The energy was softer and less intense. However, the conversation shifted to marriage and took odd, deep turns. I tried to keep everything light and abstract, but he made the discussions serious and focused on us. I assured him he could always be honest with me, but despite him being the one steering the conversation to uncomfortable topics, he concluded by suggesting it was all a joke and he was merely playing. This felt very manipulative and unnecessary, leading me to believe that everything from the beginning was calculated. Consequently, I broke things off with him shortly thereafter. However, I felt impulsive and somewhat regretted that decision. I had ended my first love's relationship impulsively, leaving a lasting scar on my heart. My behavior with this guy felt erratic and I was spiraling over text. He described it as triggering, noting that he had a former partner who was bipolar. My actions were triggering for him because when I ended my relationship with my ex, he never allowed me to return. My greatest fear is making a mistake so severe that I cannot recover from it. He shared that his greatest fear is being with someone who could leave him at a moment's notice. He mentioned that my texts were causing him to reconsider the relationship dynamics. Eventually, I sent a text, being honest and not spiraling. At that point, he began to understand what I was experiencing. Nevertheless, we resumed our relationship as friends. When we reconnected, I conveyed all my feelings about the sexual encounters and my sense of potential manipulation. He expressed shock that I had felt this way throughout, stating he needed to process how I viewed him. He added that it might take some time before he could touch me again. After some non-sexual meetings, we continued. Later, we had sex again. He choked me and I choked him, not for the first time. He enjoyed it, as was evident on his face. However, afterwards he made a joke referencing it, asking, "What kind of villain chokes a man with a stuffy nose?" I responded, "What kind of villain enjoys it?" I had moved my hand while choking him and he returned it, and all he said was, "You make a good point." I do not know, I just feel like there is so much happening beneath the surface that I cannot precisely identify, hindering my ability to determine if I am comfortable with it. Our dynamic has never been straightforward and light, despite both of our intentions. Even when it is, there appears to be an emotional undercurrent that is palpable. You could cut the tension between us with a knife. This adds complexity to our sexual encounters, but it has also been emotionally draining. He seems emotionally careless. I do not think he realizes how he impacts me at times, but I always find myself decoding his words, wondering if he is being strategic or just clueless. Things have been confusing, and when I attempt to clear the air and maintain emotional neutrality, he becomes strange and even harder to read. We share several similarities. We are both the youngest in our families, have similar backgrounds, and likely both have undiagnosed ADHD. We spent much of our formative years feeling isolated despite being part of large families. As a result, I observe things that I do not think he wants me to see. I can read him enough to know there is more going on, but not enough to discern what that is. I have had moments where I feel I should end it. I have literally told myself, if he cannot meet you where you are, just walk away. And yet I do not. I text him, I tell him I want to visit. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, pondering what any of it signifies. I grow frustrated because I feel like I am navigating something inexplicable, yet I cannot walk away either. He says he desires a simple life. He claims he does not like drama, and that is what I want too. However, it feels like I have been thrown off balance and spiraling throughout the entire relationship. I simply want peace, closure, or perhaps a few months of uncomplicated, passionate sex without the emotional ups and downs. I mean, that was my original intention. I was open for it to progress further if it naturally did. I know this dynamic is not sustainable. Yet for some reason I keep returning. I love being near him. Everything is fun, intriguing, and mysterious. However, the intensity begins to ramp up in ways that do not necessarily alarm me. I am simply apprehensive about his intentions. I posted a shorter version of this last night, but everyone seemed to misunderstand the nuances and merely advised me to leave him. Whether I should leave him is not what I am trying to figure out right now. I apologize for that. I am simply trying to comprehend what has occurred and what is happening. Does anyone have any advice on how to gain clarity? Or is there something within this situation that I may not be recognizing? Summary: I met a man online and expressed a desire for something light and casual, but there have been emotionally and sexually intense moments that have left me confused. We broke up, but I returned and now we are just friends, though everything still feels emotionally tangled. 3 months in, I still do not know if I am overthinking or sensing something deeper. I am seeking clarity and advice. Story 2. After an incredible start, I felt like I was paying for my girlfriend's love literally. Despite my best efforts, I ended up feeling unappreciated and insulted. "You think I'll cheat on you and get your own food," led to a heartbreaking breakup that left me questioning everything. Could I have saved it? Hello, everyone. I am 30 years old and feeling really down. 6 months ago, quite by chance, I met a girl through mutual friends at a party I never intended to attend. We connected instantly, and I wouldn't leave her alone until she agreed to go out with me 2 days later. I genuinely felt that I had found the one, and she seemed to feel the same. We both recognized that what we had was unique. We began our relationship, and in the first 2 weeks we sat down together and had crucial conversations about what we were seeking: children, religion, and more. There were differences, yet we both agreed to work on the aspects that mattered to each of us. The most significant differences were that I am Jewish, and while she is technically Jewish, she is not connected to it. On my side, she expressed a desire to adopt children, which was not something I had ever considered before. A year earlier, I had written in my notebook about wanting to take a trip to Portugal with a girl I loved. As fate would have it, 3 weeks after meeting her, she traveled to Europe, and I suggested the wild idea that we meet in Portugal. We did, and it was incredible. Initially, we discussed splitting the costs of the trip, but she lost her job 1 week before we left, and I covered all the expenses. I didn't have the heart to ask her for money, and she didn't mention it. The following months were fantastic, but I noticed little things that bothered me. I admired her strong personality, but it often seemed like things always went her way. We talked extensively about our childhoods, and she had faced many challenges. I'm sure that influenced her behavior. However, I felt that I had made an enormous effort in ways I had never done before: trips, gifts, flowers, and constantly expressing how much she meant to me. I sensed a constant undercurrent of jealousy from her. She would make jokes about me possibly cheating on her, despite no evidence to suggest that it was even slightly plausible. Regardless of how often I reassured her, those jokes persisted, and I believed there was often a kernel of truth in such remarks. Even though I would never betray her, she seemed fixated on the idea that one day I might. We once took a trip to visit her family, which I financed completely, during which several things bothered me. She got drunk and I spent the whole night taking care of her. She was belligerent and said many hurtful things. I understand that wild nights happen. She was often late and always in a hurry, which frustrates me, and once we were on the plane, she started talking about the next trip she wanted to plan. At that moment, I was going over my finances from the previous trip, and she noticed we had spent a lot of money that weekend. I expressed that I felt somewhat unappreciated, not because I paid for everything, but because she never asked if I could afford it. Instead, she was casually discussing future trips as though they were guaranteed without considering how this impacted me. She replied that she preferred not to discuss it on the plane. When we returned, we had a significant argument over this matter, and afterward she left, resulting in 2 days of silence between us. Upon reconciling, I stated I wanted to move past it. I explained that my primary concerns were not feeling appreciated and that finances are very important in a marriage, leading me to feel we were not aligned. She listened, but I did not sense any real intention to change, more like a mutual agreement to disagree. That fight marked the first significant crack in our relationship. On Valentine's Day, I bought her beautiful flowers and coordinated with her office for a dramatic delivery, just like in the movies. We planned a romantic dinner, but she arrived an hour late. It's true that I also purchased tickets to a show which ended up at a different theater, but her lateness truly upset me because I had made considerable efforts, and it was an expensive restaurant. I sat alone in that fancy place for an hour while couples around me celebrated together. At the beginning of our relationship, she did many lovely things for me, small gifts I thanked her profusely for, and she cooked for me, which I often made feel special, as appreciation is vital to me. I wanted her to understand that I never took her gestures for granted. However, 4 months in, I felt that she wasn't doing much for me. I helped her run numerous errands, paid for everything, and started to feel unappreciated, questioning whether I was being taken advantage of. Another significant incident arose when she mentioned she was contemplating having a graduation party, but was uncertain because she would have to invite her ex. Initially, I did not respond because she had a crucial interview at 8 a.m. the next day, and I didn't want to keep her up late with a serious discussion putting her first. A week later, during a conversation, she asked me what made me feel most insecure in our relationship. I told her it stemmed from my perception that she was not open to compromise. When she requested an example, I shared my feelings regarding her comments about her ex. What upset me the most wasn't just the mention of her ex, but considering how sensitive she was about other women in my life, I found it hard to believe she couldn't see how her question would affect me. If she went ahead with the party, she would be choosing between honoring her promise to her ex and inviting him, which made me uncomfortable, or not inviting him, which would make him uncomfortable. And I felt she wasn't considering my feelings at all. All this built up to a trivial fight, where I delayed watching the next episode of White Lotus for a week because she hadn't seen it yet. So as I sat watching old episodes with her, she mentioned feeling hungry. I ordered her food, asked for a bite, and she declined, saying, "No, get your own, this is mine." I was infuriated beyond words. It wasn't about the food, it was about months of feeling unappreciated. Here she was in my house, watching a show while I waited for her, consuming food I had purchased and refusing to share. I was so angry that I sat in silence for 3 hours. As we prepared for bed, I expressed that I was genuinely upset, frustrated to the point that I could hardly explain why. She inquired about the reason, and when I elaborated on the sharing issue, she laughed it off, dismissing my feelings as overly dramatic about a piece of food. I lost my composure, yelled at her, and told her she was selfish. I remarked on how unreasonable it was for her not to share a simple piece of food with her boyfriend, and advised her to buy her own food next time if she wanted to behave this way. Once again, she, like in our initial argument, refused to discuss it and walked away. I asked her before she left if she wanted to talk, since it was clear that my anger was not solely about a trivial salad. She simply walked out. I later realized that she hadn't left anything behind at my apartment, which hurt me deeply because it proved she was willing to exit at any moment. I decided not to reach out. I could have navigated any issues, financial matters, adoption. I was willing to work through everything, but one thing I could not accept was her willingness to walk away, especially over something insignificant. You can quit on anyone, but not on your partner, not on the one person to whom you have made a commitment. We have not spoken for 2 weeks, but she sent me a heartfelt message about how our beautiful story should not end on a negative note. She expressed gratitude for how I helped her learn about herself and her spirituality and wished me happiness, even though we are breaking up. She still has feelings for me, even if she didn't express them well. Receiving that text was painful. It made me realize that I have always been the bigger person in my life, always prioritizing others, always being someone who leaves a lasting impact. For once, I didn't want to be that person. I did not want to apologize for my feelings. I didn't want to tell her that her response was childish. I did not want to be the one to resolve our issues. I frequently find myself reaching out to maintain friendships, keeping relationships alive, checking in on people. I understand that when I stop, I often realize that many people I consider close are not as close to me as I thought. With someone I genuinely loved, that realization stung, and we had not spoken for 2 weeks. We had fought on a Sunday, and that Tuesday I went on a business trip for a week, followed by another week without communication. I want to experience love without feeling underappreciated. While this post highlights all the negative aspects, there were indeed wonderful qualities about her and our relationship, and I will miss her greatly. Thank you for reading.